They say that art is a window to the soul, but in the case of Elias Vance, art was a prison. On a cold Tuesday in November, the authorities broke down the door of a decaying Victorian estate on the outskirts of Blackwood. They expected to find a corpse. Instead, they found a masterpiece of human suffering. Elias Vance, once the most celebrated painter of his generation, was sitting in the center of a pitch-black room. He was catatonic. His eyes were wide, fixed on a blank canvas, while his hands, stained dark with substance that was definitely not oil paint, scraped rhythmically against the floorboards. He didn't speak. He didn't blink. He only pointed at the empty easel in the corner and wept, but he wasn't crying tears. A thick, crimson fluid leaked from his ducts, staining his cheeks in a permanent mass of grief. Surrounding him were 26 portraits, 26 women, each one captured in a state of absolute, bone-chilling terror. And each one of those women had been reported missing over the last decade. I am an archival specialist with Forensic Bureau. My job is to listen to the things the world wants to forget. Last week, an unmarked envelope arrived at my desk. Inside was a rusted USB drive containing 27 audio files. These weren't police interviews. They were Elias's private diaries, recorded as he worked, recorded as he collected his musings. As I listened, I realized that the police only knew half the story. They found the 26 portraits, but the 27th easel was empty for a reason. You see, Elias Vance didn't just paint his subjects. He claimed he had found a way to bridge the gap between our world and the canvas. He believed that if he could capture the exact frequency of a human being's final scream, he could make them immortal. He didn't want to kill them. He wanted them to live forever inside the paint. What you are about to hear is a reconstruction of those files. It is a journey into a mind that fractured long before the first stroke of the brush. But I must warn you, there is a specific cadence to Elias's voice, a psychological trigger he claimed he embedded into his stories to prepare the listener for the final sitting. As we go through the details of Clara, the woman who became his final obsession, pay close attention to the sounds in your own house, the settling of the wood, the wind against the glass. Because Elias Vance believed that once you know the story of the 27th portrait, the empty space on his wall is no longer empty. It's waiting. Are you sitting comfortably? Good. Because by the end of this hour, you might find that you can't move at all. This is the case of the 27th portrait. The first audio file begins with a sound that stayed with me for days. The wet, rhythmic slapping of a heavy brush against a wet canvas. Then Elias speaks. His voice is a sandpaper whisper, thin and devoid of soul. I saw her at the station. He says, she was transparent. Not literally, of course, but the world was moving through her. People bumped into her and didn't apologize. The rain hit her skin and didn't seem to make her wet. She was Clara, my muse, my ghost. According to the diaries, Elias didn't stalk Clara in the traditional sense. He studied her. He watched the way her pulse flickered in her neck when she was anxious. He noted the exact shade of bruised violet under her eyes from lack of sleep. To Elias, these weren't signs of exhaustion. They were colors he didn't have in his palette yet. He invited her to his studio under the guise of a high-paying portrait series. Clara, desperate and lonely, walked into the Victorian house on the hill. She thought she was being seen for the first time in her life. She didn't realize she was being harvested. The recordings from inside the studio are disturbing. You can hear the scratching of charcoal, constant and frantic. Elias describes the room in vivid detail. It smelled of turpentine, old dust, and something metallic. The scent of iron. Day 3. Elias records. Clara is perfect. She sits for hours. Her spine a rigid line of obedience. But her eyes, they are still too full of life. They reflect the light of the window. I need them to reflect the void. I told her today that the sessions would require her to stay overnight. She hesitated. I saw the fear spike in her pupils. It was the most beautiful shade of amber I've ever seen. I must capture that fear. I must bottle it. The narrator's notes indicate that this is where the rituals began. Elias started playing low-frequency hums in the house. Sound designed to induce paranoia. He began to replace their water with liquids that made her dreams vivid and terrifying. He wasn't just painting her body. He was sculpting her terror. Think about that for a second. Have you ever felt someone staring at the back of your head in a crowded room? That prickle on your skin? Clara felt it in the diary. She asks him, Elias, why are the other paintings covered with black cloth? He responds, and you can hear the smirk in his voice. Because they are jealous, Clara. They can feel that you are the one who will finally finish the collection. At this point in the investigation, we found Clara's actual cell phone hidden under floorboards. Her last unsent text message was to her sister. It simply said, "The eyes in the paintings. I think they're following me. I don't think I'm the only person in this house." As the days bleed into weeks, the audio files grow darker. The sound of the brush is replaced by a heavy, wet dragging noise, like something being pulled across stone. Day 14, Elias whispers into the recorder. The human eye is a lying organ. It sees what it wants to see. To truly paint Clara, I had to remove the distractions of the world. Elias began a process he called the purification. He boarded up the windows of the studio until not a single ray of natural light could enter. He forced Clara to live in total darkness, illuminated only by a single flickering candle placed behind her. This created a silhouette so sharp it looked like a hole in reality. In the recordings, you can hear Clara's voice for the first time. She isn't crying. She is whispering prayers in a voice so thin it sounds like dry leaves. She asks for the time. Elias tells her it's always midnight. He tells her that the sun has died, and they are the only two people left in the universe. This is where the forensic reports get graphic. Elias believed that synthetic paint was dead. To capture a life, he needed life. The audio logs describe him harvesting pigments. He didn't want enough blood to kill her. Not yet. He wanted the secretions of her fear. I noticed Elias records with a clinical coldness that when she is terrified, her sweat carries a different salinity. When she cries, the chemistry of her tears changes. I have begun mixing these into my glazes. I am literally painting her onto the canvas, cell by cell. He describes the long sitting. He forced Clara to maintain a single pose for 20 hours. To ensure she didn't move, he didn't use ropes. He used psychological terror. He told her that the 26 covered paintings behind her were hungry, and that if she moved even a finger, he would lift the cloths and let them look at her. He claimed their gaze alone would wither her skin. Listen closely to the background of these tapes. If you turn the volume up, you can hear a faint scratching sound. It's not Elias's brush. It's coming from the walls. Clara starts screaming about the women in the wood. She claims she can see the faces of the previous models trapped inside the grain of the floorboards, their mouths open in silent, painted screams. Elias just laughs. A dry, hacking sound. "They aren't in the floor, Clara," he tells her. "They are in the air you breathe. You are inhaling their dust. Soon, you will all be part of the same breath." Have you ever felt the air in a room get heavy? Like the oxygen is being replaced by something thicker? That is what Clara was experiencing. She was being erased layer by layer, as the portrait on the easel became more real than the woman standing in front of it. The recordings take a turn on day 42. For the first time, there's silence. No brushstrokes. No whispering. Only the sound of a heavy door creaking open and the distant, rhythmic ticking of a clock that seems to be slowing down. Elias had fallen into a deep sleep, exhausted by his obsession. Clara, skeletal and trembling, found that for the first time her shackles, which were more mental than physical, had loosened. She didn't run for the front door. She knew Elias would hear the heavy bolts. Instead, she followed the only sound she could hear, a faint melodic humming coming from the ceiling. She climbed the narrow, hidden staircase to the attic. The air up there didn't smell like turpentine. It smelled like a museum. It smelled like a funeral home. In the center of the attic sat 26 wooden chests. Each one was labeled with a name and a year. Sarah, 2014. Elena, 2016. Mia, 2018. Clara opened the first one. She expected bones. She expected a horror movie cliche. But what she found was infinitely more disturbing. Inside Sarah's box was a pair of ballet slippers, a lock of blonde hair tied with blue ribbon, and a collection of voicemails recorded onto a cassette tape. Clara realized the truth. Elias Vance didn't just kill these women. He stole their identities. He would spend months mimicking their handwriting, learning their secrets, and wearing their belongings until he felt he was them. Only then would he paint them. The 26 portraits weren't just paintings. They were the headstones of lives he had completely consumed. And then she saw the 27 chest. It was already open. Inside was a dress she had worn on her first date with Elias, and a photo of her, taken 3 years before they even met. Suddenly, the humming stopped. From the shadows of the attic, Elias's voice drifted out, sounding distorted, as if multiple people were speaking at once. "You weren't supposed to see the wardrobe. Clara, it ruins the immersion." The next 10 minutes of the audio file are a chaotic symphony of terror. You hear Clara's bare feet slapping against the cold floorboards. You hear Elias calmly explaining that he isn't a murderer. He is a preservationist. "Why stay in a world that forgets you?" he shouts over the sound of breaking glass. "When you can stay in my gallery forever, I am giving you the only thing the universe won't: permanence." Clara manages to lock herself in the basement, the very place where the story began. She is surrounded by the 26 covered paintings, and in the pitch black, she realizes that the cloths aren't just covering canvas. They are breathing. The scratches she heard in the walls, they weren't in the wood. They were the sounds of 26 pairs of hands trying to claw their way out of the oil and pigment. The final audio file is the most quiet. There is no running, no screaming, just the sound of a single match being struck. As the police entered the basement that night, they didn't find a struggle. They found Elias Vance sitting in front of the 27 diesel. The cloth was finally gone, but the canvas wasn't painted with oil or blood. It was a mirror, a massive, antique mirror framed in heavy gold. Elias was staring at his own reflection, but he wasn't seeing himself. He was speaking to the mirror in Clara's voice, then in Sarah's voice, then in the voices of all 26 women. "We are almost finished," he whispered to the glass. "The gallery is almost full. But here is the detail the newspapers never printed. When the lead investigator, Detective Miller, approached the 27 portrait, the mirror, he didn't see his own reflection. He saw Clara, standing right behind him in the glass. He spun around, weapon drawn, but the room was empty. Only Elias was there, laughing a hollow, wet laugh. The forensic analysis of the painting in the house revealed the ultimate horror. There was no canvas under those layers of oil. The 26 portraits were actually 26 missing women, chemically preserved, coated in layers of clear resin, and painted over to look like art. Elias hadn't captured their souls. He had turned their bodies into furniture. But wait, remember the 27 diesel? The mirror? The detective who led the case? The one who found the mirror? He disappeared 3 days after the arrest. When the police went back to the house to re-examine the crime scene, the mirror was gone. In its place was a new painting, a portrait of a man in a detective's uniform, his eyes filled with a terror so real it seemed to pulse. I told you at the beginning that I am an archival specialist, that I received these tapes in an unmarked envelope. I lied. I didn't receive them. I found them. I found them in the basement of this very house, where I've been staying for the last 3 weeks. I thought I was investigating Elias Vance, but this morning I woke up and realized I haven't seen my own reflection in days. Every time I look at a mirror, I see you. I see you, sitting there, listening to my voice, captured by the story. Elias was right. Art isn't a window. It's a trap. And now that you've heard the frequency of the 27 portrait, you are part of the collection. Don't bother looking behind you. By the time you see the brush, the paint will already be dry.
If you have a strange experience or a story you can't explain, leave it in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. There are many more stories waiting to be told. Until the next video, stay safe.